This week, Siskel and Ebert review crime boss Al Pacino trying to legitimize the family business in The Godfather Part 3. Socialites Tom Hanks and Melanie Griffith are pursued by tabloid reporter Bruce Willis in The Bonfire of the Vanities. And Detective Arnold Schwarzenegger goes undercover in Kindergarten Cop. It's all coming up next on Siskel and Ebert.
All businesses having to do with gambling. We have no interest or investment in anything illegitimate.
When they asked Francis Ford Coppola to make The Godfather Part 3, it was an offer he couldn't refuse, and we'll review it on this edition of Siskel and Ebert, along with some of the other new holiday openings, including Sean Connery and Michelle Pfeiffer in The Russia House. I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune. Our first film is The Godfather Part 3, and in a nutshell, this picture is not in the same league as the first two films in the series, but how many other movies are. There are problems with this new film, but it still has impressive strengths, returning to the story of Michael Corleone, now trying to achieve some respectability in his late middle age. The film opens with him receiving an honor from the Vatican after making a $100 million contribution. That's the sort of thing the Corleones do. His estranged former wife, Kay, played by Diane Keaton, is onto his game. They have a most exciting relationship in this film. She knows Michael better than anyone, and they still love each other.
I came here to protect my son. I didn't come here to see you disguised by your church. I think that was a shameful ceremony.
I spent my life protecting my son. I spent my life protecting my family.
They're exciting together. Later at the same party, Michael's peaceful, respectable life is torn apart by his nephew, Vincent, the illegitimate son of the late Sonny Corleone. Remember him, played by James Caan. Vincent, played by Andy Garcia, gets into a fight with mob boss Joey Zaza, played by Joe Mantegna.
So, what's the trouble between you and Mr. Joe Zaza?
Just trouble. I'll take care of it.
It's foolish of you.
Foolish of me? Things a little foolish to this guy, don't you think? Right?
Right! Temper like his father.
Vincent turns out to be a key character in the movie, taking over the role of muscle man for the Corleone family when battle is joined with Joey Zaza. Michael, in the hospital recovering now from a diabetes attack, tells Vincent to cool it with his hitman mentality.
I command this family, right or wrong. It was not what I wanted!
In A Tale of Forbidden Love, Vincent ends up becoming romantically involved with Michael's daughter, Mary, his first cousin, played by director Coppola's real daughter, Sophia. The other story point in the film is Michael's involvement with the Vatican Bank, which has just suffered a big loss.
This deal with the Nobiliare can make you one of the richest men in the world. Your whole past history and the history of your family will be washed away.
Well, the intrigue in Rome is a little melodramatic, to say the least, but so is the spirit, of course, of this entire saga. A bigger problem is the casting of Sofia Coppola, who is out of her acting league here. She's supposed to be Andy Garcia's love interest, but no sparks fly. He's more like her babysitter. And the very last scene of the film with some bad makeup on Al Pacino is an embarrassment. But on the positive side, there is so much to treasure here. Big themes of family and destiny, the rare pleasure of picking up characters' lives, the punishment of Michael Corleone seeming utterly appropriate for a violent family man, and that great unfinished love story between Michael and Kay. I've already seen the film twice, enjoyed it more the second time. I'm sure I'll go back again, flaws and all.
It is flawed, it is good. One of the things that bother me is that the screenplay seems kind of half-baked or half-finished. There's one sequence right at the beginning of the film, for example, where they're talking to each other, and it doesn't seem as if what's being said really relates to what they've just been told. It's almost as if the dialogue is put in arbitrarily without really flowing out of the characters and the situation. But on the whole, I agree with you. It's a beautiful looking film. It's a beautiful feeling film. It's great to see these people again. It's interesting the way they dig into the controversy involving the Catholic Church. They get daringly close to real-life events there, and I'm glad I saw it.
What did you think of, did you respond the way I did to the Michael and Kay story? I love that story, and I think that Keaton's character is so strong. They could have made her weak. I'm very impressed.
She stands up to him.
Yes.
She says, you're a killer, you're a gangster. He stands there, he takes it, he knows it's true because this was a woman who he loved and respected before he took over his father's business.
The key to the whole pictures, the key to him is when he says to her in the first Godfather family, that's my family, Kay, it's not me. And of course, the whole scope of this story is that it is him.
It is him. It is his family. Now, I want to discuss with you one of the central questions about Godfather 3, which you brought up, and that is, did Francis Ford Coppola make a mistake by casting his own daughter, Sophia, in the important role of Michael Corleone's daughter, Mary? And I disagree with you. I don't think so. There's no way to predict what kind of performance he might have obtained from Winona Ryder, the experienced and talented young actress who was originally set to play this role. But I think Sofia Coppola brings a quality of her own to Mary Corleone, a certain upfront vulnerability and simplicity that I think are appropriate and right for the role.
It's over, Mary. There are things I have to do you can't be a part of. Don't be your father. It's not your father's decision, it's mine.
Some critics have suggested that Sofia Coppola lacks the extraordinary beauty and irresistible sex appeal necessary for this role, but actually, that's not what Mary Corleone is like at all. She is an average and an exceptional child in a family that she clearly only has a dim understanding of.
You gotta understand, man. You gotta understand.
I'll always love you.
She's heard rumors about her father, but she remains in the dark and naive, and I think she falls for Vincent, Michael's nephew, mostly because he's the first guy who's ever really taken her seriously. She's in love with him, but I don't know if he's in love with her. He's such a calculating guy, he might have gone after any woman who was Michael's daughter. My opinion on the Sophia question is that she is not incorrectly cast, and that she adds something to the movie through the very freshness for unstudied and direct performance.
I know what you're saying about her being sort of natural and not the polished bombshell, and that would have been wrong. There is one, a photographer in the picture who takes care of that role. But at the same time, I don't think it's explained why he really comes on to her, unless this guy is the most venal, craven guy. But look who he's playing around with. He's playing around with the Godfather's daughter.
I think there's at least room for a discussion as to whether or not because so many people have said that that's the biggest mistake in the movie.
No, the biggest mistake is the makeup at the end, wouldn't you? That's a glaring, awful mistake.
It actually didn't bother me that much. Later in the show, a review of Tom Hanks in the film version of Tom Wolfe's great book, The Bonfire of the Vanities. But coming up next, Arnold Schwarzenegger stars as a detective turned school teacher in Kindergarten Cop.
I have a headache.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
What's the matter?
I don't know.
What's wrong?
I don't know. I just don't feel so good.
Are you hungry?
And we're looking at Arnold Schwarzenegger and Pamela Reed as California cops on an undercover assignment in the Pacific Northwest in the new movie Kindergarten Cop. Their job to infiltrate a kindergarten class and discover which one of the little tykes has a mother who has absconded with $3 million in drug profits. At first, Pamela Reed plans to teach the class. She's a former school teacher, after all. But after she gets food poisoning, Arnold steps in and takes the assignment. He's used to facing tough customers, but these kids are something else again.
First, I would like to just get to know you. Ha 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 ha. Quiet.
The best scenes in the movie involve the classroom, where some of the dialogue is priceless. This is my favorite exchange.
Yes.
I need to go to the bathroom.
Okay, we can go.
Boys have a penis, girls have a vagina.
Kindergarten Cop contains a lot of elements that don't seem like they would work together, but somehow they do. There's the comedy of the classroom, the romance of a relationship between Schwarzenegger and one of the other teachers, and the violence of the showdown between the cops, the bad guy, and his really evil mother, played very effectively by Carol Baker. The movie was directed by Ivan Reitman, who also made Ghostbusters and Twins, and who likes to combine action and comedy in his films. This time, the formula works. but I think one word of warning is necessary. Despite the upbeat advertising for this film and the title Kindergarten Cop and its PG-13 rating and all of that kind of image-building, jolly kind of stuff, a lot of scary and bad things happen to little kids in this movie, and it is not appropriate for smaller children.
Yes, I underline that. In fact, if I had to draw a line arbitrarily, I know I'm going to upset a lot of kids, I'd say about 10. I mean, I think it's pretty high. I know it says PG-13. Take it seriously.
Here's a movie where a guy sets a school on fire, where a father abandons his child and then slaps him in the face. Come on.
That's the problem. That plus the drug caper and all that is why I really think the film splits in two. It's wonderful to see the giant chained up. You know, that's Gulliver's Travels is basically what we're seeing here. You know, he's strapped down to the floor of the
By
kindergarten.
all these kids.
Absolutely, and it is wonderful. But the rest of the picture, I just think it doesn't work for me. I admire him tackling the child abuse scene and the way it's done. I think it's handled well. But why we have to see some of the actions taken toward the kids, I just sat there in the caper. I just felt the film split in two.
Coming up next, the great book Bonfire of the Vanities is now a movie. Tom Hanks, Melanie Griffith, and Bruce Willis co-star.
Mrs. Russ, can I understand that you're Sherman McCoy's lover?
Excuse me?
Answer the question, Sherman. I'm going to jail, aren't I?
Well, let me get out first. Now listen to me. You don't say anything. Don't cover your face. Don't hide your head. You don't even know they're there, okay?
That's a scene from the eagerly awaited new film, The Bonfire of the Vanities, based on Tom Wolfe's fabulous book about New York City in the 80s with its stock exchange wheeler-dealers, their high-life society, and the fear and loathing with which they regard the black and Hispanic underclass. The book is full of wit and bile. The movie is full of something else. Director Brian De Palma soft pedals the whole story and has made a very bad film here. I'm very disappointed. In the story, Tom Hanks plays a super Wall Street bond salesman named Sherman McCoy, who considers himself a master of the universe, not bound by any rules, as he prepares to sneak out of his fabulous apartment away from his razor-thin wife and toward his mistress.
What on earth are you doing?
Well, I'm taking the dog for a walk.
That's Kim Cattrall as his wife. Later, Sherman picks up his married girlfriend, Maria, played by Melanie Griffith, at the airport. They take a wrong turn coming home and wind up in the Bronx, where they're going to be confronted by a couple of young black men. Trying to escape, they back into one of the young men, injuring him. And back home, Sherman and his mistress debate whether to report what they believe was an attempted robbery. Melanie Griffith looks kind of blousy here, not as sharp as the book's character.
But if we call the police now, then we're not...
Let's call them. Let's call them and invite them over here to our little love nest. They would love to get their hands on us. The police, the press, and all the rest of the media rats.
The other key player in the story is Peter Fallow, played by Bruce Willis, a drunken tabloid journalist who sees the juiciness of this racially inflammatory story.
Everyone is calling me by my first name, like they know me, like they own me. The lawyers and the police and the newspapers. Now, how did I get to be so important?
You're not important. Just dinner. Don't you get it? A week from now, a month from now, these people aren't even going to remember what they ate.
Willis seems to be much more of a drunk than a journalist in this film in an inappropriately laconic performance. The criminal justice system also comes in under attack as we meet a grasping district attorney and his staff looking for a popular case to prosecute that will win the DA the black vote in an upcoming election.
So your boss, the district attorney, Mr. Weiss, who every night dreams of one day becoming mayor of New York, what he needs is a white man. He needs to find him, he needs to book him, and he needs to throw him in jail.
Well, all the subject material is intact from the book, but the attitude of contempt is missing. This is more of a lighthearted romp, and I wasn't laughing, not at all. A namby-pamby ending with the judge there, Morgan Freeman, sermonizing, is one of the worst of many bad scenes. I didn't even want to see this. I love this book so much, I didn't want to see the film made, and boy, I sure didn't want to see it made this way.
Well, you know, one of the problems we both have is that we've read the book. I can only imagine what this movie would seem like to somebody who hadn't read the book. Maybe they'd like it more. The problem is that time after time, the book made such an impression on me that I was sitting there saying to the screen, you know, that's not who that person is. That's not why they're doing that. That's not really what happened. That's not what it was like. Until what you get is sort of like kind of cartoony highlights of events in the movie, with the movie giving you no idea at all as to why these things are happening or the motivations of the people involved.
Or why it's so important to document what was going on in New York at this time with these people.
Yeah.
There's no urgency here.
You know, in a movie that is filled with disappointments, the biggest disappointment for me was the Bruce Willis character.
Absolutely.
They really missed a chance here. I mean, why do they get so tied up with the notion that they have to fill up a movie with stars that they don't look at the book and see who this drunken, British, freeloading little guy was, and why not get somebody who can play that fascinating character instead of having a big lump of dead space there taking up so much screen time?
The question I have is for Brian De Palma. If you want to make this film, why make it this way?
If you wanted to make it at all, try to make it...
There are a dozen directors that could have done a much better job.
Okay, when we come back, The Russia House with Sean Connery and Michelle Pfeiffer, caught in the middle of Cold War intrigue and romance.
I hope you are not being frivolous, Barley. My life now only has room for truth.
Is The Russia House, based on the best-selling novel by John le Carré, whose thrillers all deal with the professional spies of the Cold War. But the Cold War is winding down as this movie opens. The war is mostly talk, and so is the movie. Talk and more endless talk, droning on and on until it seems as if nothing is going to happen. What does give the movie at least some life are the performances by Sean Connery and Michelle Pfeiffer in two key roles. He's an alcoholic London publisher who's been sent a mysterious manuscript from Russia, and she is the woman who sent it. He doesn't know her, but at the urging of the British Secret Service, he travels to Moscow and seeks her out. She's suspicious of him.
Are you a spy?
No.
Through Pfeiffer, Connery realizes that the manuscript must be by a man nicknamed Dante, who he met a year earlier. And in a flashback, he remembers his philosophical conversation with the mysterious stranger, played here by Klaus Maria Brandauer.
I am a moral outcast.
Oh, it's always nice to meet a writer. And what sort of rubbish are you turning out now?
Lies. I'm the lie.
Brandauer is a scientist whose manuscript betrays deep secrets about Soviet defense capabilities, but of more interest to Connery is the woman who passed it to the West, the first woman in years that has made him care for anything other than his bottle of whiskey.
It's unselfish love. Grown-up love. You know it is.
Barley, please.
It's mature, absolute, thrilling love.
Much of the movie, too much of the movie, involves these men, British and American Cold Warriors, who eavesdrop on conversations, mull evidence, spin theories, and engage in endless speculations.
Is there a conclusion? Clyde, there is a conclusion. Drop it down the toilet, and your guy with it.
When I say that The Russia House contains too much talk, I mean that literally. John le Carré writes elegant and intelligent dialogue, but in his novels it implies and suggests actions, while in a movie it brings action to a halt. If the film had been a little more old-fashioned and had centered on the espionage and love affair with more of Connery and Pfeiffer and less of the jaded and world-weary Cold War experts, I think I would have cared a lot more about it. As it stands, there's so much dialogue, the parts of it would work better as a radio play.
And you know, I like those parts.
Yeah.
I absolutely like the idea of all these people sitting around spinning theories, trying to manipulate each other. In addition, I think you also have, which you did enjoy, Connery and Michelle Pfeiffer in a relationship not unlike the Lena Olin, Robert Redford relationship in Havana, where you see a guy who's been basically selfish and doesn't believe in love, has an awakening. And I enjoyed both of them. I enjoyed both stories. I really did.
You talk a good movie, but the problem is this movie doesn't really get off the screen with all of the emotion that you apparently have found in it.
I found it inside Connery, just like I found it inside Redford.
There wasn't enough of Connery. There wasn't enough of the love story. Well, there wasn't enough of anything except talk.
No, you're not going to get me to disagree only because I like the movie, so I would want more of it, too.
Okay.
When we come back with our video pick, we'll look at the complete James Dean.
And now it's time for our weekly video selection, a release we think you might enjoy renting or buying for home video. And my selection this week is the James Dean 35th Anniversary Collection, an elegant new box set of either Laserdiscs or videotapes from Warner Brothers that include James Dean's 3 major movie performances. Here they all are: East of Eden, Rebel Without a Cause, and Giant. These movies have all been out on video before, but now the ones that were shot in CinemaScope are presented in their original widescreen formats on Laserdisc, although on videotape they're all cropped as usual. This box set also includes an hour-long documentary called Forever James Dean and all of the original coming attractions trailers for the films. It's worth looking at. Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs up for The Godfather Part 3. It's not as good as the first 2 movies, but it's better than most other movies. A split decision on Kindergarten Cop with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I thought it worked, Gene didn't, but we both believe it is not appropriate for younger children. 2 thumbs down for The Bonfire of the Vanities, a missed opportunity to capture a very special book. Another split decision on The Russia House. Gene especially liked the relationship with Pfeiffer and Connery. I thought it had too much talk. And so The Godfather Part 3 is really the cream of the crop this week, and that's for sure.
And it is a picture that you can savor and see again. There is great richness there, and the flaws, well, again, as you said, it is so much better than what we see, that those flaws shouldn't keep people away anyway. That's it for this week. Next time we'll be back with reviews of more big new holiday movies, including Come See the Paradise, the drama of Japanese internment camps in America during World War II. Dennis Quaid and Tamlyn Tomita co-star. Also, Mel Gibson stars as Hamlet opposite Glenn Close and Alan Bates. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.